Today I'm going to show you how to make a healthful brownie. Hi, I'm Dr. Linda Garrow. I'm an assistant professor of clinical sciences here at the West Virginia School of Osteopathic Medicine. My background is a master's in nutrition science, a doctorate in food science, and I'm a certified culinary medicine specialist. The brownies we're going to make today aren't just going to have flour in them. Instead of flour, we're going to use black beans. Now, why would we want to put black beans in a perfectly good brownie? Well, there's some very good reasons for that, and they're mostly nutrition-based, and that's why we're eating our food in the first place. The black beans are going to give us a great source of fiber that we're not going to get from all-purpose flour. If we used a whole wheat flour, we would still get some of that fiber benefit, but when we make brownies, that typically isn't a flavor that we're looking for. So we go with all-purpose flour where the bran and the germ, the fiber components, have been removed. But in the black beans, we still have all of that fiber in there. In fact, in an ounce of all-purpose flour, we have basically no fiber at all. But in this recipe with these black beans, we're adding 21 grams of fiber versus 5 grams of fiber that we would have gotten just from using the flour. So it's a big difference. And why do we need fiber? Well, women need about 25 grams of fiber in their diet a day, and men around 30. The average American only gets about 15 grams of fiber, so we are falling very short. Now, a brownie, this is kind of a special indulgent treat. We might want this around the holidays, or maybe we've been adhering to a healthful diet, maybe even trying to lose a little weight. And now we get to indulge in something that's actually a little bit healthful. These are black beans. They have no salt added. You want to make sure that you buy the ones that say no salt added, not ones that just say low sodium, and certainly not the ones that don't talk about the salt at all. Because when you turn those over and look at the nutrition panel, you're going to see a lot of sodium in there. Now, while we don't tend to get enough fiber in our diets, we tend to get way too much sodium in our diets. We should have less than 2,300 milligrams of sodium per day, and most of us have no problem exceeding that. So we want to cut it out where we can, and that starts by reading your nutrient panels. So this one says 10 milligrams of sodium per serving. If I went for just regular black beans that have not had the sodium reduced, they're going to be well over 100 milligrams per serving. So it's a lot more sodium. The other thing that we're going to get, in addition to less salt from the black beans than using flour, is more potassium. Potassium is a nutrient that we tend not to get quite enough of. Another benefit of adding the beans to the brownie rather than the flour is that we want to be consuming about 4 to 5 servings of legumes, beans, in our diet every week. And so this is going to help us meet that requirement. Now, it's going to take more than one brownie to do that, but at least it's a start in the right direction. Another benefit of our brownies is going to be the addition of the walnuts. Walnuts are a great source of omega-3 fatty acids. So you may have heard of omega-6 and omega-3s. There is an ideal ratio, and that is 4 to 1. The problem is we don't tend to get 4 parts of omega-6 fatty acids and 1 part omega-3, or if you want to put that into ounces, 4 ounces of omega-6 and 1 ounce of omega-3. We tend to get 10 times as much omega-6, and some people even up to 30 times. And that is a potential health issue. The omega-3s help prevent inflammation. They help prevent cardiovascular disease. They can help prevent certain types of cancers. And another really important one is their benefit for brain health and development. So we want to focus on getting omega-3s in our diet because we usually don't have a problem getting those omega-6s. So by adding walnuts, we're going to add some of those to our food. So to begin our recipe, the first thing we need to do is toast our chopped nuts. We have both walnut halves, which go on top for cosmetic appearance and for their nutritional benefit. And we have the chopped nuts that we will stir into the batter. So these are going to go into a 350 oven for about 5 to 7 minutes until they're a nice golden brown. After about 3 minutes, I usually give them a little stir to make sure that they're browning evenly. All right, so it's been 7 minutes, and now I'm going to remove those walnuts from the oven. We want these to cool down a little bit before we stir them into the batter. And as you can see, they've taken on a nice golden color. All right, so our nuts have cooled, so I'm going to begin making our batter. So into a food processor or a blender, either can be used, we're going to add our beans. And the beans have been drained, rinsed. You want to make sure the liquid's coming clear, so we want all that starchy liquid to be rinsed away from them. And then I blotted them dry on a dark towel. That way we don't add extra water to our recipe. Into this, we're going to add each of our additional ingredients. So we need 3 eggs, 1, 2, and 3. 3 eggs. We need 1/4 cup of oil, something mild, vegetable oil, which is actually soybean oil. You can use canola oil, or this is avocado oil. But they're all very mild flavors, so they don't really change the taste of our product. If you used an extra virgin olive oil, you would definitely taste that in these brownies. Next, we need 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. I like to get all of that in there. It tastes really nice and it helps bring out the sweetness. Then we have both of our sugars. So we have the regular white granulated sugar, and then I have a dark brown sugar. It has a little more molasses than the light brown, so it's going to give it a little bit richer flavor. Then we have our cocoa powder. This has been sifted and then measured. We have our leavening agent. We're using baking powder. Make sure that you use powder and not soda. Otherwise, it's not going to rise correctly. We have just a teeny bit of salt. Now, if you're on a salt-restricted diet, you can omit that. We're not using very much, just a 1/4 teaspoon. And then we have just a little bit of espresso powder. We add just a little bit. It flies under the radar. You won't taste it. So if you don't like coffee, don't worry. It's not going to make these taste bad. In fact, it's going to make them taste better. It helps bring out the boldness of the chocolate flavor without tasting the coffee. So just a little bit, that's a 1/2 teaspoon. Now we don't want to add these chips in yet because we want them to stay whole. If I were to add them now, they'd get all chopped up in there. So we're going to blend this for about 1 minute, and then I'm going to scrape down the sides because some of this dry stuff is going to blow around a little bit. Okay, a little bit of cocoa powder, so we'll scrape that down. Make sure that everything gets mixed in. And go another 1 to 2 minutes until it's completely smooth. It's looking pretty good right now. And it definitely smells good. All right, let's check our batter. Oh, that looks nice, and boy, does it smell chocolatey. Okay, so it's nice and smooth now. I'm going to transfer this to another bowl, and that's because we need to stir in the nuts and the chocolate chips. And you want to try and get all of that wonderful batter out of there, because any of it that we leave behind means we have less in the pan. All right, there we go. So to this batter now, we're going to add our 88 grams of chocolate chips and our 44 grams of walnuts. So we just fold that together. Make sure we have a nice even distribution of both the chocolate and the nuts. And then this is going into our prepared pan. So we're using an 8-inch square cake pan, and I have put parchment paper in 2 directions, and I intentionally left some flaps here. These are going to be the handles that I use to help me lift this out of the pan so that once it's cooled, it's easy to cut. I'm really excited for these. They smell so good. And then just spread it to the corners. And you want to make sure that it's pretty level in the pan so that it all bakes at the same rate. The batter will become more fluid once it goes into the oven, so it should settle on its own, but it's good to give it a start. All right. So now that we put it into the pan and level it off as much as we can, now we're going to decorate it. So first I'm going to put some rows of chocolate chips that kind of divide where the lines are going to be. I'm going to ultimately cut this into 16. Now you may think that's kind of small, but it's an 8 by 8, so those are about 2 by 2. And that would be a healthy portion size. It will be very tempting to want to eat the whole pan, but that would not be a healthful decision. So let's stay on the healthy track. We've added beans to make these more healthful, so we're also going to control our portion size. So to decorate, I've got the chocolate chips here. You can just sprinkle them on top if you don't want to take the time to place them individually, but that's how I want to do it. So I'm going to put them in here. And you can put them farther apart, closer together, whatever you want to do, just sprinkle them on. It's however you want to make them look. Be creative. You can put a happy face in the middle of it if you'd like. And you may not even use all these chocolate chips. If you like less chocolate, you can omit them, or you can use half as many. You can make this part of it how you desire. Also, I'm using walnuts. Not everybody can eat walnuts, not everybody likes walnuts. Some people have tree nut allergies that prevent them from consuming them. So you don't have to use nuts at all. You can leave them out, or a different nut that you can use would be a pine nut, which isn't actually a nut at all. It is a seed. So this is safe for people with tree nut allergies, as well as something like a pumpkin seed. Again, you want to make sure that you're getting the unsalted seeds and not the ones that have already been salted. Whew, that took some time. But this is a fun step. This is where you can get the kids involved if you want to get them into baking and learning about how their food is made and where it's coming from. So I didn't use all those chips, but I've got enough on there that now I'm going to go ahead and add my walnuts. Now I want these to be kind of in the center of where I imagine the 16 squares are going to fall. And again, you can take the time to put them in one by one like this, or you can just sprinkle them on top. And you could maybe want to do chopped ones if you're doing that. So now they're decorated, and again, you can decorate them how you want, or you can just take chopped nuts and chocolate chips and sprinkle them on the top, or omit them altogether, or substitute some seeds in place of the nuts. Now they're ready to go into the oven. They're going into the same 350 oven that we toasted our walnuts in earlier, and they'll bake anywhere from 25, 30 minutes, maybe even 35. It really depends on your oven. So you'll want to check them on the early time at 20 to 25 minutes, see how they're progressing, and then add more time as needed. You want to place them into the middle of your oven. Too close to the bottom, you risk burning the bottom, and too close to the top, you risk burning the top of them. So it's been 20 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and check my brownies and see how they're progressing. So I'm just sticking a toothpick into the middle. It's still soft, and you can see it's coming out with brownie batter still on it. So I'm going to put those back in. I'm going to give them another 5 minutes and then check them again. It's been 30 minutes. Let's check these brownies again because they sure smell good. So I've got my toothpick and I'm going to poke it into the center. That's basically clean. So we're going to pull these out and let them cool a little bit before we slice them. They really smell chocolatey. You have to make these so that you can smell what I'm smelling right now. The brownies have cooled 10 minutes in the pan, so they're set up enough that we can now take them out, transfer them to the cooling rack to finish cooling to room temperature before we slice into them. Part of the reason we need to do that is so that the brownie itself can set up and doesn't just fall apart, but also we have a lot of chocolate in here, so that needs to firm up as well. So I'm just using my handles to lift it out of the pan and place it onto the cooling rack. Our brownies have cooled, so they are ready to slice. I'm just going to leave that on the parchment paper to cut it. And I'm going to cut this into 16 squares, or my best ability of 16 squares, equal pieces. So every square will have a walnut and some chocolate chips. You can see that it's more cake-like in the middle, and so it'll be harder for someone to detect that you actually used black beans to make these brownies. All right, the smell is amazing. They are so chocolatey, so I'm gonna dive in. Light, cakey. The chocolate is amazing. A little bit of nuttiness from those walnuts. So good. You have to make this. I'm going in again.